You can do all the right things to build trust and still not be credible. Find out the last piece of your credibility puzzle in this episode of Thoughts on Change. Welcome to Thoughts on Change, the podcast about the messy, political, emotional, deeply human side of leading change. I'm Kelly, and I believe anyone can implement lean tools until they actually have to get people to use them. Around here, we talk about how to move culture, how to build credibility, and how to influence without bulldozing. Basically, how to herd humans without losing your mind. You've put in the time to build relationships. You've spent the time at the Gemba observing the real work, and you've made your motivations explicit, and they align with your values. And you're still not being listened to. You have the integrity and the intent down, but there's one more piece of the credibility puzzle left: results. You can be the most trustworthy person in your entire organization, and I would recommend that you aim for this. This is a very good thing to achieve. But if you don't deliver results, no one will ask for your help. They'll come to you for advice, but they won't adopt what you're selling, which is lean and CI and that thinking and principle. And I don't mean just results as improving KPIs. I mean solving the problem you are given and solving the problem you aren't given, the hidden, unspoken one. If you can nail this last piece, you will become the person people go to fix their problems, and people will actually listen to you. So let's dive into the details of getting results that really matter. Here's how I've seen CI people being used in organizations. Generally, it's things like, we need 5S in this area. We need better visuals. We need daily management. We need to flow our processes, etc., etc. And many of us, especially when trying to build credibility, will take this and say, yes, sir, I can do that. And we go off and do exactly what was asked of us. But here's the issue with that. This proves that we can take direction, but not that we can solve their problems. Plus, after we've done what they ask, most of the problem is still going to exist. And they won't think, oh, shoot, if only I'd really asked for the problem that I need to be solved and not just for this tool to be implemented. No, that's not going to happen. What they will think is, I asked her to fix this and she only got part of it. So by implementing what you're asked to do, you can actually hurt your credibility. And I know it's counterintuitive. What you need is to get to the real problem that they need help with, the one they think that tool will fix. Now, of course, you can't just ignore what they're asking of you, right? They've built in their head a need for that tool or that solution, so we need to deliver on that. But we also need to give them what they're asking for and solve their problem, that underlying problem. And unfortunately, leaders don't walk up to us and say, hey, could you help me redesign our accountability system and coach my directors through the emotional discomfort of culture change? Right? No, that's not the question. What they ask for is, we need 5S. So you have to decode that request because there are layers to problems. Always. First, there's the surface layer, right? This is the thing people say out loud. This is where you hear things like, we need 5S, we need daily management, we need better flow. It's that perceived missing tool or practice that they think will fix whatever the underlying problem is. But then if you peel back that layer, you start to hit the performance gap. This is the part that sounds like we're missing output by X. Work isn't getting done on time. Inventory is stacking up and slowing us down. So now it's less about the tool and more about the measurable impact. But near the heart of the problem, and this is the very juicy center, you hit the systems and behaviors layer. This is where you start hearing or observing things like, this process is too difficult to perform consistently, and our leaders are too close to see it. We don't actually have a system to teach accountability and create space for it. This deepest layer is where cultural and behavioral friction lives. And it's also the layer that determines whether change sticks or slides right back to the old way. And here's the thing, most of the time, we're only given the surface, or if we're lucky, the performance layer. But what we really need, especially if we want to lead culture change, is visibility into all three layers. And ideally, the path you're taking to solve it addresses all three layers. Because if you only work on that surface layer, you become the go get this done person. If you do make it to the performance layer, you become a performance enhancer. Now, that is a great place to play, but it doesn't create pull for you as a strategic cultural partner. But when you get to the systems and behaviors layer, that's where you can deliver bigger, more sustainable results. And that's when people start saying things like, wow, I need her help building our culture. So this gets us to the real question here. How do we get to the deeper layers when no one is handing them out? And for me, I have found that two skills matter the most here: insatiable curiosity and asking really good questions, and then judgment-free observation. Let me share a story of how this actually played out for me. I was working with a team and they requested that I help implement 5S. So that was layer one of the problem, right? This is just a tool implementation. And I could have very easily gone and just helped implement this tool. But as I've said, then that would have potentially hurt my credibility of being a cultural advisor to them. So instead, here's how I used insatiable curiosity to help get to layer two of this problem. I went out and I asked the leader who requested this things like, what will 5S solve for you? What problem does this solve? And if we had 5S, really good 5S in this area, what would that enable the team to do? And from that conversation, I learned that what was happening was 5S would enable that team to be able to consistently meet output and not have to search for tooling for the next job they had to produce, and to just take some time away from those activities so they could focus on making parts, which was the value that they provide. So through those questions, through that insatiable curiosity, I was able to get from level one, which was just implement a tool, to level two, which was their performance gap. They weren't meeting output consistently, and that was leading to inefficiencies in the system as well. So now, to get to level three, I had to come use my judgment-free observation. So I went out on the line and I just watched what happened. And the important part about this is that judgment-free piece, because it can be so easy to see people working and just say, oh, well, gosh, they just need to do this. Or, oh my gosh, why are they doing it that way? That's wrong. But that can block us from really seeing those systems and behaviors that are at play here. So here's what I saw. I saw the team doing everything they could to meet their output needs. And I saw the area team leader trying very hard to help fix the problem, to help improve the team's output and help improve the team's efficiency. But it wasn't getting anywhere. It wasn't leading to the results they wanted. And then the third thing I saw was their leader coming out and doing a lot of telling and doing a lot of directing and pointing. And that also not having the desired impact on the team lead to help them see and learn how to think about the problem. So I've made it to layer three, right? I've made it to the behaviors and systems that are in place. And I'm seeing that the team lead doesn't have the understanding or the ability to see, and that the leader isn't being effective with their approach. So now I could just go and solve layer 1 and 2 and implement 5S, and additionally focus on the other things that are preventing them from meeting their output and operating more efficiently. And that would have built some good credibility. They would then see me as a go get it done person and a person who can solve their performance problems. And that's a great place to be in. But I really wanted to get to the level 3 problem, to get to those cultural enablers. And so with my judgment-free observation, I was then able to go to both the team leader and their leader and help them see how their current approach wasn't leading to the results they wanted. I worked with the team leader to help educate and teach them more on ways to see and think about the problem they were approaching. And I worked with their leader to see that that approach of telling wasn't helping the team lead and they needed to take a different tact. And after all of that work, right, we solved all 3 layers of the problem. And that team became one of the most successful teams in the entire organization. And I was then seen as not only a person who can go get something done and close a performance gap and solve a problem, I was seen as a reliable source to help solve cultural issues. And that's exactly where we want to be. So here is your takeaway and what you can take action on this next week. The next time you get a request to help with something, don't just go do it. First, ask yourself, what layer of this problem am I getting right now? Then engage your curiosity and go ask some deepening questions to get to the deeper layers of the problem from layer 1 to 2. And here are some of my favorite questions that you can try out for yourself. What problem does implementing X tool solve for you? What is preventing you from closing this performance gap currently? And what would have to be true for this process or system to work as you want? I love those questions. I use them all the time. And then once you uncover the deeper layers of the problem with these questions, then go observe without judgment and see what else is happening, see what else is going on, and find those unspoken problems, those systems and behaviors, get to that layer 3. Because fixing these along with the spoken ones will make you look like a superstar and build out your credibility. Right? So if this resonated for you, please share this with a fellow CI warrior so we can reach more and more people and help more and more people to get to a better place for change agents. And if your organization is struggling with things like this, with solving the top surface layer problem and not getting to the lower ones, reach out. I run private workshops to help support teams and organizations through this. So there's info below in the show notes if you'd like to learn more. And if you want to stay up to date on future podcast episodes, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And a quick plug for the next episode in a couple of weeks. It's a very special episode. This will be our first interview, a CI Warrior series. So please tune in to listen to the stories from a real CI warrior out there just like you and just like me. That's a wrap for this episode of Thoughts on Change. If you're also out there trying to move culture instead of just installing tools, hit subscribe and share this with a fellow CI warrior. And remember, progress beats perfection, curiosity beats control, and culture beats everything. See you next time.